Perfect. Hey, almost. Almost. Perfect. Hey, this is the Double Triple channel. Yep. I'm Ron. I live in New Hampshire and I stream a lot of different stuff. A lot of science and tech stuff. Getting into that a little bit here, and we're also going to talk about Juneteenth and a bunch of other things. But I think you might hear a little bit of noise in a little bit of background noise there. There's a noise floor in my audio. That's because I had shut off my my noise suppressor last night when I did my stream, because my noise suppressor was confused by the peeps. Alright, let me see here. How does that sound? Is that better? Yeah, that's okay. That's without it, and that's with it. Okay. Okay. Alright, so I think we got the technicals here. Oh yeah, we got to do one. We got to make sure I got my sync right. That's right. All right. So the sound is lagging a little bit, right? That's what it sounded like to me. Does it sound like to you? About 50 milliseconds there. All right. All right, that's good enough. I think that's good. All right. So yeah, I did an experimental stream last night. It was kind of an experiment, you know. I don't know. What I did is I took my camera. You didn't see it, right? I took my camera. Nobody saw it because you couldn't see it. It was too dark outside. I took my camera, my webcam. I took my whole system, actually. It was a big pain in the ass to get all that stuff out there. But I stuck it all out there. I pointed my webcam and turned up the gain, turned up, the brightness and all that, and pointed it out my backyard where all the fireflies were, because we get a bunch of fireflies this time of year. And you could see them kind of. You could see the ones that came really close to the camera, so it wasn't a total flop. But you could hear the peeps. A lot of peeps. The peeps are these little frogs that make a beep 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 noise, and they were really loud last night, so you could hear those. But I have this software filter, on my audio, because I've got a lot of, there's always a noise floor, right, on audio. At least there used to be when it was all analog. Now that it's digital, they can take that out. But anyway, I add, I have a filter that I use, and it works fine on my voice, But the peeps, it was getting confused. It was making the peeps sound really like they were from another planet or something. So, so I had to, and I noticed that about halfway through the stream, so I turned off the filter. But then I forgot to turn the filter back on when I started the stream here. So, all right. So I don't. Okay, I think we have an ad starting in about 30 seconds. Anyway, so I just wanted to try something different, on that thing,
Let's try something different.
Yeah, I wanted to try something different. So it was different. It was an experiment, right? It didn't work, but it was an experiment. All right, so I think I have an ad coming up. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to get this ad manager to actually remind me when there's a real ad coming up, and and tell me, or give me some sort of give me something, throw me a bone, something. It's got, the way it works is it has this little graph up there that just kind of quietly goes along, and it doesn't really tell me, doesn't warn me. Especially for old people like me who have difficulty doing multiple things at once. Yeah, we're talking about NeuroD, right? We're talking about NeuroD today, a little bit later on. And that's one of the things. When you get older, it's more difficult to do multiple things at once for some reason. I don't know why it is, but that happens. You know, it's not that you get dumber. It's not that you get senile or anything. It's just this multitasking particular thing is more difficult for older people for some reason. Don't know why. But I used to be able to do that. You know, like when I was young, of course, I used to do a dozen things at once. You know, a lot of stuff at once. But all right, so I think we're doing an ad now. Does it say we're doing an ad? I think so. It says running 1 minute and 30-second. Oh wait, that's not it. I think it's running an ad right now. So I'm not sure. All right, let's. So yeah, today I'm going to talk about Juneteenth. We'll do that first, and then I have a question that is AI neurodivergent? Is AI neurodivergent? So that was something that I wanted to discuss. I can't tell if the ad's over. Oh wait, there it is. Oh, now it's saying it's just in progress. Okay, so we weren't even running an ad then. It didn't even start yet. All right, so it says it's running an ad now. I don't know. I think it's lying. I don't know why it would run an ad. There's nobody watching the stream, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe there's one person out there. I don't know. All right, so yeah, today is Juneteenth, June 19th. Get it? June 2. Right? June 19th. I mean, it could be June 15th, right? It would still be called Juneteenth, right? I don't know. So, yeah, Juneteenth. They call it Juneteenth. They just shorted it. It was June 19th. It was a special day for people in Texas who were enslaved in Texas. So we'll talk about that. In fact, I'll play a video here about that. Maybe I should do that first. Play the video first. Yeah, let me do that first. All right, I just did something different here. Let me check my sync again. All right, close enough. All right, so first thing we're going to do is I'm going to play a video. I did a search on YouTube and found this guy out there. Let me bring that up here. This guy who did a video on YouTube video on Juneteenth, and this is this guy's video here. Okay, he's got 49 comments on the video. Right, okay, we see that lots of comments. Let me adjust this better so. Oh wait, okay. I don't know. Sorry. Oh, anyway, yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. That's why I'm doing all this. Oh, I want to show you that he this guy releases his videos on Creative Commons. Where is that here? If I can get to it. There it is, Creative Commons, which means we can show it. We can show the whole thing. So, thank you, Information Man. That's his thing. Is his user name, Information Man on YouTube. And so he titled his thing, "This is why Juneteenth is a lie. Here's the truth," and that's kind of his thing, right? He's kind of like, right, information. He wants to give you the right information. He wants to give you the right information. He gives out right information, and as far as I could tell, all of it Everything that he had in here was, I checked it. I didn't, didn't make a research project out of it, but I did check, stuff I knew a lot, most of it, right? And I checked it out and just verified it and everything, and it seems to be the right information. So that's what the information man show. So, all right. So what I'll do is I'll play this, and it'll explain it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. So.
What's going on, everybody? This is Information Man. This is my new presentation here. This is the pod, and I'll be giving you these short videos, getting right to the point. These will be uploaded videos, pre-produced videos for your pleasure. Now, let's get at this right now. Juneteenth. Right now, people have been celebrating Juneteenth. People are excited. People are making flags, new flags for Juneteenth. You've got Juneteenth 1865, in which they said that black people were freed. That is a lie. Black people were not freed on 1865, June 19th. We should stop it, and get the history right.
Speaking of dates, this was produced in 2023, around Juneteenth. 2 years ago, Juneteenth. So there might be a little bit of, he might be referring to contemporary stuff. So just let you know that.
Okay. The reality is in 1980, Texas made Juneteenth a holiday because that was the emancipation, or the so-called emancipation, of black people in Texas that were told that they were now free. And even when they passed that in 1865, June 19th, a lot of black folks in the state of Texas didn't even know they were free. However, this lie has been told to us, and we've been manipulated that black people were freed on June 19, 1865, that Lincoln freed the slaves. That's another lie. Lincoln was only concerned about keeping the Union together because you had 11 southern states that became their own confederacy. They had their own presidents. They wanted to completely be sovereign to themselves, and they didn't give a damn about what Lincoln was thinking or what he wanted to do until when they had the Civil War. That's why you had the Civil War break out, because they weren't listening to any orders that Lincoln put out there. And he didn't free all the damn slaves. He simply wanted to keep the Union together. Now, there were black people that were still in shackle bondage when...
The reason I gathered you here today is for a family strategy meeting. Johnny, after dinner...
Important states to realize, because while black people were told that they were free, and while we're celebrating June 19th as the day that black people were emancipated, shame on you. It's a lie. It's not true. You should be celebrating December 6th. 1865, December 6th is when black people were truly emancipated, even though you still had a form of slavery with Jim Crow and black codes and segregation and the whole thing that was going on in the South still. However, December 6th, 1865, that is the true emancipation technically, because Georgia is the state that ratified the 13th Amendment that made it possible. You see, while black people were thinking that they were freed in Texas, and we've brought into this lie even in the 21st century, guess what? You still had, I'm going to give you the number, you still had over 225,000 black people that were in shackle slavery in both the state of Kentucky and the state of Delaware. I said it, that's true. It's true, it's facts, look it up. Black people were still in bondage slavery in those two states after June 19th, so therefore, that cannot be the emancipation date that we should be celebrating. Let's get it right. We should be celebrating, if we're going to celebrate at all, December 6th of every year. Okay? Now, Joe Biden and his administration, the Democrats, the Democrats, they simply are trying to give black people symbolism, pander to us. They recognize that they don't have to give black people any tangibles like reparations, any tangibles. Just give black people symbolism. Give them something to celebrate and dance and eat popcorn and hot dogs and hamburgers and what have you, and they'll just be happy black people. And we can't allow ourselves to buy into the okey doke like this, folks. The truth of the matter is that black people were still in slavery at the tune of over 225,000 in both Kentucky and Delaware. So what are we doing celebrating our emancipation on June 19th? It's ridiculous. On top of that, America shows its racism because they're upset because of the fact that Joe Biden made it a national holiday, that it's going to be in conjunction with 4th of their lie. You see? So America doesn't even like us to have anything that celebrates our independence, even though we got the dates wrong. This is crazy. December 6, 1865 is what we should be celebrating. Georgia ratified the 13th Amendment, which made it possible to end slavery across the board. Or at least the shackle form of slavery. Keep that in mind. Now what I want to play for you is a historian who he is a historian. He was on Roland Martin's program, and he will reinforce everything that I just told you if you think I didn't tell the damn truth.
Tell the truth.
All right, here we go.
My problem is the historical efforts that are being made and what's being surrounded. I call it the misrepresentation of Juneteenth. And so what happened in the state of Washington is they passed similar legislation, and this legislation has been passed a lot throughout this country. And in the state of Washington, similar to what they just did in Congress, they said that the legislature intends to designate Juneteenth as a statewide holiday celebrating the end of chattel slavery. So what people have been taught about Juneteenth is that those of our ancestors who was enslaved in Galveston, Texas, number one, they were the last blacks to be enslaved in this country. Number two.
Right. I want to
So, yeah, this is the guy that, okay, so we got the streamer guy, Mr. Truth, Information Man. Then we have this historian, Roland Martin, I guess is his name. Did he say his name? Who's an actual historian, so he's, he knows what he's talking about, and he's given the actual facts, what's going on. Also, did you notice that he used the word shackle slavery, which is kind of a tricky way to do it. It's most people say chattel slavery. Chattel means like ownership, outright ownership of people. Slavery, there are different flavors of slavery. Some people say that there's wage slavery, and that was chattel. I mean, that was full on the ownership of another person. That's called chattel slavery, and he used the word shackle slavery, which I thought was cool way to do it. It sounds similar and all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's listen to the rest of it here.
Mind you also this, it was in the Civil War ended April 9th, 1865.
Oh yeah, also he gets a little bit of a content warning here. He gets a little bit into he says some things that are you could probably say on TV, but might be offensive to people.
So when it ended in April of that year, you still had all this slavery going on, despite the June 19th that we have brought into. Let's continue, shall we?
That they got the word a year and a half late after President Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Both of those things historically are just incorrect. There is no other way to put it. Now, all one has to do is to understand this. Slavery ended in this country on December 6, 1865, 6 months after Juneteenth. Now, going back to the Emancipation Proclamation, which everybody seems to get so twisted, keep in mind what Lincoln said. Lincoln said, for those states in rebellion against the Union, and there were 11 of them, but in the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln only mentioned 10, is because the 11th state that he didn't mention was Tennessee. He didn't mention them because the Union already had control of Tennessee. So he said, for those states in rebellion against the Union, slavery is now free, over.
So 305.
there were 4 border states in which slavery was still practiced. Those border states were Maryland, Missouri, Kentucky, Kentucky, and Delaware. So when Lincoln said that to him, I want you to imagine this, and you don't have to imagine, this is just a fact. When those 11 states left the Union, they didn't act as 11 individual states. They formed a confederacy. And when they formed a confederacy, in effect, they formed their own nation, which means they elected a president, Jefferson Davis. They elected a vice president, Alexander Stephens of Georgia. They wrote a Confederate Constitution. They were their own nation, Brother Roland. So when Lincoln issued, quote unquote, an executive order trying to tell them what to do, that's like the Prime Minister of Canada trying to tell the United States citizens what to do. He didn't have any authorization. That's why it took a war. So that's why I'm saying to you that when the news is that they got the word a year and a half.
Okay, I just want when the Emancipation Proclamation was issued by Lincoln, he did that as Commander-in-Chief, and he did it as as Commander-in-Chief, he can give orders about what's going on in a war, in wartime areas, And at that time, like he said, those states were no longer part of the United States. It was a separate country, and we went to war with them. And just as like if in Iraq, if when we invaded Iraq, the generals there could give orders to about what what's going on. It's almost like being a dictator, and that's kind of what happened. Lincoln said, okay, here are these are the he called them territories, so that he could issue this thing. The Emancipation Proclamation, he could not do that for. This is kind of important. I want to explain this. The president can't just make up laws, right? The president doesn't have that power. The president can't just say, okay, from now on, the slaves are free. He couldn't do that. He didn't have that power to do that. No president does. President can't make a tax. President can't, start a war. These are all powers that only Congress can do by passing laws or passing or amending the Constitution. And so, but what he could do is he could issue orders regarding wartime activities in places other than the United States, outside of the United States. So like if, as I said, when the United States invaded Iraq, then the generals or the president as commander-in-chief could order things to happen in Iraq that would, that he couldn't do in the United States. Okay, so that's kind of explaining a little bit about what was going on there with the Emancipation Proclamation. He wasn't passing a law. He wasn't doing anything. It was an order as commander-in-chief as to what was going to be going on in the during the as they conducted the war. And he said, we're going to make the slaves free, and then use those freed slaves to help fight the war. So that's just a little explain. And I can't. One of these guys mentions that was kind of critical of Lincoln for not freeing all the slaves, but Lincoln did not have the power to do that. That's the whole thing. That's why they had to do the 13th Amendment. The president doesn't have the power to do that. They had to do that through the 13th Amendment. Okay, so let's go back to this now.
It didn't matter. The Confederacy were their own nation.
I'm going to back this up a bit.
So when Lincoln issued, quote unquote, an executive order trying to tell them what to do, that's like the Prime Minister of Canada trying to tell the United States citizens what to do. He didn't have any authorization. That's why it took a war. So that's why I'm saying to you that when the news is that they got the word a year and a half late, it didn't matter. The Confederacy were their own nation. They didn't give a damn what the United States said, what
Facts.
Lincoln said. That's why it took the war. Now, as far as them being the last blacks enslaved, I just heard your last guest. I've heard all of you say how important it is to get it right. Today, there's a movement that has swept this country that we should all be proud of, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
I believe that black lives do matter, but I do not agree with the nonsense that's been going on with Black Lives Matter as an organization in the way they're trying to push these other alternative things, and you know what I'm talking about. Let's get back.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I watched this thing. This is a pre-done video, but apparently this guy does a podcast, and so I don't know. I've never watched. This is the first video I ever saw of his, and I watched one other one, which I'll explain after this. But I have no idea what he's talking about there. But maybe people who watch his stream know what he's talking about there. So apparently he's critical of Black Lives Matter for something, but I don't know what it is.
Let's go back to
push these other alternative things, and you know what I'm talking about. Let's get back to it.
Do we think that Black lives just started mattering? Because let's go back to what happened with the Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln said that in those states not in rebellion against the Union, slavery is still legal. Keep that going. 2 of those states were Delaware.
That would eat away at this notion that Lincoln somehow cared about black folks and freedom. He just sat up there and said that Lincoln, out of his own mouth himself, kept slavery going in certain places. See, this was all about him just trying to keep the Union together. He didn't give a damn about black people. So this is a historian talking to you here. Let's continue.
We're in Kentucky. 2 of them was Maryland and Missouri. And keep in mind, West Virginia wasn't a state when the Civil War started. It became a state after Virginia seceded. And those 48 counties didn't want to secede, so they became a state after the Civil War. So now let's look at those 5 border states. Maryland, on November 1st, 1864, before the Civil War ended, Maryland abolished slavery. Missouri, on January 11, 1865, before the Civil War ended, they abolished slavery. West Virginia, the newly entered slave state, on February 3rd, 1865, ended slavery. The Civil War ends on April 9th, 1865. 2 months later, Granger rides into Galveston, Texas, and issues General Order Number 3, which we now call Juneteenth. I ask you to remember what was going on in Kentucky and Delaware after the Civil War. What was going on in Kentucky and Delaware after Juneteenth? I'll tell you, Roland. There were 225,000 of our ancestors still enslaved, and they did not taste freedom until December 6, 1865, when Georgia became the 27th state to ratify the 13th Amendment. That is my problem with what is going on.
That is his problem with this thing we call Juneteenth. Did you hear what he said? This brother is a historian. That was all facts what he said. The one that really got me was the Lincoln, who really, he still kept slavery going on, and so he allowed it to go on in certain places. So when you get these Republicans, especially these black conservatives who lean on Lincoln as, oh, the Republicans did this and did that for black folks, they're all the same bird of the same wing. One screws you with Vaseline, one screws you without Vaseline. That would be the Republicans, and one with Vaseline would be the Democrats. Doesn't matter. Both these political parties work in unison with each other. And Lincoln didn't give a damn about black folks. As you heard the brother say, you still had slavery going on in Kentucky, as I had said several times before, and you had it in Delaware, and that was what was happening. What I want to say is, I'm not saying that black people shouldn't still recognize June 19th, but we should be recognizing it for the emancipation of black people in Texas. And remember, it became a holiday in Texas before it became national because of Joe Biden. In 1980, Texas made it a holiday, okay? So we should recognize that that was the first group of black people, quote unquote, so-called, who got this so-called freedom that we were sold a bill of goods on, right? With no 40 acres and a mule that was also promised to black folks, right? We should recognize it for that they were the first group of black people, but they were still black people in bondage. So therefore, he's right. We should be looking at December 6th as the observance date every year. We got to get this stuff right, folks. With that said, this is Information Man, and you just been listening to the pod. Take care.
Okay. So does that make sense? That makes sense now. So yeah, Juneteenth is not when the slaves were freed or any of that. In fact, it isn't. It isn't even when the slaves in Texas were emancipated. That's not even what it is, because they were emancipated when the Emancipation Proclamation was issued by Lincoln. So what it really is when they were effectively freed, because they were emancipated, and the slave owners in Texas just ignored the emancipation order. Everybody knew about it. A lot of slaves knew about it, but they weren't enforcing it, and apparently, some of the slaves, when they found out, they took off, and just said, hey, I'm free, and they kind of enforced the emancipation themselves, but other ones couldn't, or whatever, but then when the General Granger got there on June 19th in 1865, then he enforced it. He had the troops, he had the guns. He made him set them free. Well, that's what that was about. What else was there that he mentioned? Oh yeah, the 40 acres and a mule. I wonder if I wonder if I could find like a timeline of the Civil War for people, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are not familiar with this stuff. I know I was, they didn't teach this to us in school very well when I was younger. Let me see if they have something in here called a timeline of the Civil War, and see if it's Civil War. See, timeline. No, that's not it. Let's see, timeline. Oh God, we got. We got lots of timelines in here, so let's see here. Let's type yes, you've got timeline here. List of American Civil War battles. No, that's not what we want. Really, we want American Civil War. Why would they not have a timeline of the U.S. Civil War? That's timeline of events leading to the Civil War. Okay, maybe there's a link in there. Let me try that one. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is way too detailed for what I want. Let me make sure here. I'll bring this up so you can see it. Oops. All right. We'll get this. We'll figure it out. There we go. All right. So I found an article that said the timeline of events leading to the American Civil War. And just look how detailed this thing is. This is just way more detailed than I was looking for. Now, let's see if they got a link. So maybe they got issues of the American Civil War, battles of the American Civil War, origins of the American Civil War, slavery in the United States, timeline of the Civil Rights Movement. Why would they not have a timeline of the American Civil War? why would they have one like that? Let's see what this one is. Excuse me. Oh, this is an interesting article. Okay. Yeah, let me, this is an article. I might read this later on. This looks kind of interesting, but it's not kind of what we're talking about here. Historiographic issues about the American Civil War. Over here it just said issues of the American Civil War, and that's not what that Wikipedia. So this is like you know how you have revisionist history, right? You know, after the Civil War, they reframed it as states' rights and the lost cause and all this bullshit, you know. And I mean, it wasn't until the civil rights movement in the 60s, or 50s, 60s, 70s, 60s, I guess, that 50s and 60s, that started to be more accurately framed, you know. And even today, you know, like this Juneteenth, right? He's talking about the Juneteenth thing, you know, and you know, the Tulsa riot, and you know, all that was kind of suppressed. So this would be an interesting article to go through, but that's not what I was looking for. I wanted to find a timeline of the American Civil War. Timeline events leading to the American Civil War. All right, that's what we just looked at. Let me take this in the timeline of the American Civil War. Why would they not have that in there? I don't understand. I gotta cut this out for a second in case they put something up there that's untwitchable. Timeline of Tehran. Is that what I asked for? I didn't ask for that. Okay, they're not. Oh, I know. I misspelled civil here. I got a typo in here. It is timeline of the American Civil War. Okay, there is a page named that. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to scan this article very quickly here to make sure it's twitchable before I show it on stream here. Okay, I've got an ad coming up in 3 minutes, so all right, I think I can show this. So this is really detailed. Again, way more detailed than. See, what they should have up here is a you know, at the very beginning, the first paragraph is always a summary of the article, you know. So they should have a little mini timeline or something up here, you know, that shows, you know, broad overview or something like that. So yeah, and that's another thing about covering the Civil War. They, you know, everybody they are always talking about battles. This battle, that battle, this battle, that battle. You know. Yeah, I'm not, for my own interest or whatever. I'm not. That's not my thing. You know, I'm not into that. I don't. You know. You know, more like, you know, what's going on in the minds of the people, and how, you know, and the causes. What causes these things to happen, and how, you know, the whole reason why you study history is so that you don't make those mistakes again, right? So we don't do another Civil War, you know. That's why we study history. So you got to figure out what led up to it. So this is just all a bunch of stuff about battles, man. This is battles. Battles of the American Civil War. Other battles, the American Civil War, troop engagements. So this is just all about the fighting part of it. So, all right, I don't think this is going to be useful to me. That's way too much detail. So, all right, well. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty basic, right? I mean, it's, you know, people were progressing, you know, they were getting beyond, you know, if you go way back in, you know, the 16th, 17th century, it was like, you know, slavery was like a normal thing. It was normative, you know, it was normalized, whatever, you know, people accepted it, you know, there were very few people who questioned it, just like, you know, you can think of things that we do today that people don't very few people question that are questionable. Okay, I've got an ad starting up here, so all right, so that, I don't know when it starts. I guess you can't get it exactly, so I'm going to assume that it's running now, and then in a couple minutes, then we'll get back to this again. I'll continue to look stuff up here just to see if I can find anything useful in these articles. Yeah, it says it's playing an ad, but I don't know. I don't know why they bother. I don't have that. You know, I only got a couple of viewers, so I don't know why they do that. Okay, this is just a lot of detail. Yeah, you know what I do? I think I'm going to do a Google search for that. There might be something out there. Let me see here. I'm going to do a Google. Type that in, timeline of the American Civil War. Let's see what they give me. Okay, it says that the ads are over, so I'm not sure. All right, I Googled it, and this is what Google gave me. All right, they give it to a 1-sentence paragraph here, no, 2-sentence paragraph of the Civil War. Oh, 3 sentences. There's another period. Okay, and they give their timeline. And then they stop it here, right? They have them surrendering, and then they have Lincoln getting assassinated, and then they have the rest of the Confederate forces surrendering. they don't have Juneteenth, right, which came after this, which is it's in their timeline here. They don't have the Reconstruction amendments or anything, you know. So I don't know. What's this here? Timeline World History Documentaries. YouTube. That's probably not. All right, I'll click on that. Let me look at that. Hang on just a second here. Let's see if I can stream that.
With hotels and vacation rentals, Booking.com
Shut up.
has something for everyone.
Okay, that's they have a thing there, but it's not released on Creative Commons, so I can't show it. And it looks like they have Britannia. Oh, National Park Service. Okay, that we could do. Right? That's something produced by the federal government, which is in the public domain. So we can look at that one here. Let's see. Civil War Timeline by the National Park Service. Here we go. Let's see what this is about. God, do I have to do this? No, there shouldn't be anything on this. This is the National Park Service. All right, so we got all the battles. That's what they focus on here. Battles. Okay, content warning. They're going to be dead people because we're talking about war. All right, so there's the surrender on April 9th. That's it. What? No. They cut it off again. Wait, what are you? Let's see if they have stuff before the battle here. Before the look, they've got like a year or something before the war. Okay, well, a few months before, but I mean, you know, it's like, all right, this is kind of frustrating. It says deeper dive in AI mode. Let's click that and see what that does. Let's see if that has any more in here. Nope. They go to May 10th and then they cut it off. All right, well, but you get it, right? It was, yeah, they're the Civil War. The Civil War, you know, was in kind of in the middle. That was in 1861. It started and ended in 1865, and it was because the southern, the states that were mostly south in the United States was kind of mostly on the East Coast, right? There was a little bit on the West, but most of it was on the East Coast or middle. You know, they had people hadn't moved yet to the West so much. So it was mostly the states on the East, and the ones that were mostly south. That's where they grew. They had plantations and they grew stuff, you know, cotton and whatever and whatnot. And so they needed a lot of labor to do that, and they used slavery. They took people from Africa and kidnapped them and brought them to the United States and forced them to work and kept them as property. And so. And then they bred them like animals or something, like captive animals. so some, you know, a lot of people knew that was wrong, you know, and I think even the people who wanted to continue slavery knew it was wrong, but they were making money off of it, so they continued it. And as people begin to want to get rid of that, and because it was bad, it was wrong, they knew it was wrong, and a lot of other countries were ahead of the U.S. on that, and were, first they stopped they stopped stealing people, kidnapping people from Africa. That, stopped the slave trade, they called it, and then they eventually they wanted to stop it, right? And the people in the South who were making money off of that did not want to stop that. And Congress started to move to pass laws to stop slavery, and the states that had slaves in the South wanted to continue slavery. And they used a technical argument, which was fallacious, but they used it anyway, saying that states had rights. States had rights to do what they wanted, and the federal government didn't have the power to stop them from having slavery. That's where you hear this term state rights. It was a fallacious argument, legal argument by people in the South. And a lot of times at least that you used to hear it, you don't hear it so much anymore. But they would say, oh, the war was about states' rights, it wasn't about slavery. But that's not, it was about slavery. Of course it was about slavery. And so they, and so this some of the states in the South said, okay, well, we're gonna break away from the United States and start our own country. And they did. They seceded from the country, and they broke away and started their own country. And so when that happened, so the Civil War really wasn't a civil war technically, right? It was a war between the United States and the Confederate States, two different countries, because they broke away and started their own country. So technically, it wasn't even really a civil war, as they mentioned in that video. That was a separate country. The South was a separate country at that point. Those states were no longer part of the United States. And so then when that happened, then the United States said, fine, all right, we'll start a war with you, and we'll make you stop slavery. And that's what they did, and we stopped slavery that way. And it was terrible. You don't want to go to war. You don't want to go to war because it kills and maims people, and it's horrible. Anytime you have a choice, don't go to war. Okay, if you're ever in a position where you got to make a decision or influence or call your Congress people or whatever, if there's a choice whether you want to go to war or not, don't go to war, because it's horrible. Anyway, so we went to war, and hundreds of thousands of Americans were killed. It was terrible, but eventually they referred to as the North, which is the United States, and the Confederate States in the South. The North won, the United States won, and but it was and that was this surrender here, down here. Let's see, the surrender here. That's when they call it the end of the war. But the slaves still weren't free. That was the end of the war, and the North won the war. But then they had to, the Emancipation Proclamation, as they said, issued by Lincoln, freed all the slaves in the southern states, but it didn't free the slaves in some of the states that had not, because the states were individually outlawing slavery. You know what I'm saying? But there were a couple of states. There were four states when the war started. I think there were 4 states that were still part of the United States that still had slavery. And at the end of the war, there were 2 that still had slavery. And so, in order to make it completely, and Lincoln could not do that as a president. Lincoln could not just make up a law and say that the slaves were free. He couldn't do that. It had to be something that Congress did. And so Congress proposed the 13th Amendment to which ended slavery, which said that you could not have slavery anywhere in the United States. And then they proposed that, and then that got ratified in December 6th, I think they said, of 1865. And then that's whenever all the slaves were free. But then, when Lincoln was shot, right on April 14th, before that, and so that whole process got screwed up. There was, they call it Reconstruction. Kind of got messed up there. It really got messed up. They ended up going into this practice called Jim Crow, which was effectively slavery. It wasn't chattel slavery. It wasn't ownership. They didn't own slaves, but people were essentially slaves. And they didn't have rights and everything else. The rights weren't recognized. They had the rights, but their rights weren't recognized by a lot of the southern states. So, all right. So that's this. Oh, this guy had another thing. He has a whole bunch of stuff in here. I found another one in here. Another part of that whole thing of the Jim Crow era was perpetuating that through media. The media at the time was stage, and they had these things called minstrel shows where they would just have derogatory depictions of black people to kind of perpetuate in the minds of white people, of everybody, ideas that that black people should the minstrel shows were trying to inculcate people that black people were inferior or didn't have rights, blah blah blah, all these horrible things. We got an ad starting soon. All right, when we get back from the ad, I will tell you about this other video that this guy has. So we'll do the ad first. I'm gonna take a break here during the ad, and then after the ads, then I'll explain that whole thing. All right, be right back. Ads, okay, ads are over. I just finished. All right. So, where were we here? Yeah, I was going to talk about this. So what they did. A second here. I got to adjust my chair. I don't have a spare $500 to buy a stupid streaming chair. You know, I can't just use my rocking chair. So yeah, after the war ended, they wanted to keep exploiting the former slaves and black people, and so they had the whole series of laws and practices that are referred to as Jim Crow that did not recognize the rights of black people and suppress them and oppress them, and for the purposes of mainly for economic reasons to because if people are oppressed like that, if they say get in the minds of other people that a group of people are inferior, basically saying they have less value, then they can pay less money for their labor. They can not give them as much what they deserve and all that. You know what I'm saying? That's why they did it for a long time. They still, even today, it goes on. So, and one of the main ways that they did that was through the media at the time. The media at the time, the mass media. They did it in books and everything else, but they did it with these minstrel shows where they would depict black people, or what they would do is they would have white people who would put blackface on their, go in black. They call it blackface. They make their faces black, and enact pretend to be black people doing, things to make the black people look, in a derogatory manner. They would just do horrible things. I can't show it on Twitch. It's offensive. I would never show that. I don't want to show that. But one of the things that that came out of the minstrel period was this thing of Aunt Jemima, which was a brand of pancakes that they make. These guys came up with this. I can't remember the whole details of the story, but basically these guys bought a mill, a wheat mill, and wanted to find out a way to market their product, and so they came out with this pancake mix, and they needed it, a brand. They wanted to have a brand for it, and as they were thinking about this, getting this thing started up, they went to a minstrel show, and at this minstrel show was something Jemima, and so they came up with this idea of Aunt Jemima. So that's where it came from. And racist people went along with it, and they came out with this pancake, this product, this pancake mix. By the way, you shouldn't eat pancakes. Just to let you know, anytime you have a starchy type product like wheat bread, or anything like that, anything that has starch in it like that, and you heat it up above 250 degrees C, it produces something called acrylamide, which is carcinogenic. It causes cancer. So if you have pancakes are actually fried, they get that hot and they turn brown, then it makes that acrylamide, and that will cause cancer. So don't eat pancakes, or anything like that. Another one is potato chips. You gotta make sure you don't eat a lot of potato chips either, or if you make them, make sure they're not the kind that are burnt, or really dark brown burnt potato chips, because those have acrylamide in them, because there's starch in potatoes. So if you get potatoes which have starch above 250 degrees, they'll burn, and they'll create this acrylamide. So you shouldn't eat that. And pancakes, same thing. The starch in the flour, when you put the pancake batter on the frying pan, it burns. It gets that part of the surface of the pancake gets above 250 degrees C, and it creates this acrylamide, which is causes cancer. So don't eat pancakes, or avoid them as much as you can. Whatever. Same thing with bread. It's probably better to remove the crust of bread if you can. And toast. For God's sakes, don't eat toast. Don't ever eat toast, because that's cancer. It's acrylamide. It'll give you cancer. So anyway, so they had this guy did a video on this whole thing, and he explained a lot about this Aunt Jemima thing. And this had come up somewhere else. There was anyway. I don't want to get into that, but it came up, and somebody didn't understand. Somebody didn't understand why people were upset about why they were demanding that this Aunt Jemima company, or this company that had this Aunt Jemima brand, to demand that they get rid of that and don't do that anymore. The same thing with like the Redskins sports teams. The Redskins, and people don't understand, why. Because they don't understand the history, you know what I mean? They don't understand history. They don't have the lived experience of the people who are offended by that. So it's hard for them to understand, But if you want to know, like specifically about this about Aunt Jemima, that particular one, if you're still confused about why people would be offensive about that, watch this guy's film on that. This guy's video on that. Let me give this guy a shout out here. I should subscribe to him too here. Let me subscribe to him. Information Man Show. That's what he is. He's at, I guess you could just search for Information Man Show, and you'd probably find him. At Information Man Show. So, that's his thing. But this video gets into detail. This is a stream very much like this thing. It's not an edited down video, so it's going to be, it's not going to be, a clean, real quick video like that other one we just watched. But it'll explain to you why it's so offensive. Why that, the whole history of thing, going all the way back to the minstrel shows. It's a slavery, really. This is a depiction of a slave, really, is what it is. And he gets into all the detail about the whole thing and the whole progress and why they finally got rid of it. Redskins, I would think people would understand why that would be offensive, And I think back, a few decades ago, I was in that same place. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why people would get upset with these things. But now I know. I learned. You learn these things. And just recently, even there was just recently, a few years ago. I don't know. I learned about squaw. I used to go skiing. It's this place called Squaw Valley in. Where is it? In Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, in California. And recently, the last few years, they changed all the names of places that had squaw on it. Squaw Valley, Squaw, whatever. There's several places that had squaw in their name, and I didn't understand that. I just learned this just recently. And I heard about that, and I said, "Oh, why would they do that?" And I researched it and found out, and it turns out that the word squaw, is like a demeaning name for female, first American. I mean, we know I think most people know that the word squaw means a female first American. The first Americans, who were here before Columbus stumbled across the U.S. America. There were Americans here first, right? And squaw. My understanding of that was it was just a female first American, but that's not what it is. It's more like derogatory term. It's like the C word, the four-letter C word, something like that. It's a derogatory term. So, but no, most people didn't know that. But the first Americans knew that. Most of them, I think. So that's why they got rid of that, because it was offensive to female first Americans. So, and I didn't understand that until recently. But you learn, right? You learn these things. If it doesn't make sense to you at first. And also the other thing is, people say, "Oh, it's First Amendment, blah blah blah," and there is no First Amendment. I mean, we're not saying that people can't say what they want to say. People have freedom of speech. People can be racist. People can say racist things. The First Amendment doesn't the government doesn't stop people from saying anything they want to say. But it's these companies. These companies had products. They had they named their product, and they put it out there to the people and say, "Here, buy my product." And if the people say, "No, I don't want to buy your product because I don't like the name," then they have the right to do that. They say, "We don't want to buy your product." And then the people who have the product and have these offensive names say, "Well, okay, we'll change the name of the product so we can sell our product." That's what's going on. It's not it's not rocket science. Nobody's censoring anybody, or anything like that. So there is one case that's like if somebody had like a store or something like that, or was offering some sort of, they call it public accommodation. If there's some public thing, that you're putting out there, a store or a hotel or whatever, and you put a big sign, put a swastika on it, or you put some offensive thing on the front of the store, that's illegal, because you're basically saying we don't want this whatever marginalized group to come into the store, and that's against the law. You can't do that. But just in terms of just speech, people have the right to say offensive things. That's and then people have a right to object to it and say, no, that's wrong. That's all part of the free the process. So we figure it out. Eventually everybody figures it out. We move forward, right? All right. So that's. Is there anything else on Juneteenth that I need to explain? There was another on this whole Aunt Jemima thing. There's this might be an offensive title, but I'm gonna show you what it is. There's a book that they mention that if you're more into reading than watching videos, there's a book called Slave in the Box. Slave in the Box: The Strange Career of Aunt Jemima. This guy named Manring wrote this book, and it's like got just every detail about this whole brand, this Aunt Jemima brand or whatever. And see, they're saying the book shows how Aunt Jemima is a damaging racial image. So there you go. So if that's another way you could learn about it, if you're into reading. I got dyslexia, so I can't. Reading is not my thing. I mean, I can read it, but I'd rather watch a video about it. It's just easier for me. And I can go to the video, the written part if I need to get more details or whatever. All right, so that's Juneteenth. So it's good. We should celebrate that. And as the guy said, we should celebrate that, but we should also celebrate December 6th, when the actual 13th Amendment was ratified. Georgia, I guess, was the one that put it over the top at that time. Got the 2/3 or the three-fourths of the states to do it. You know, that's how an amendment works, right? One way. There's about 4 different ways it can happen, but the Congress proposes the amendment, and in order for Congress to propose an amendment, they have to get 2/3 of both houses of Congress to agree to it, to say they want the amendment. And then after they do it, then it goes out to the states, and each of the states have to ratify the amendment. And as soon as 3/4 of the states ratify it, then it is considered law. Then it's ratified, and it's part of the Constitution. So that's how that works. Unfortunately, our Constitution has been stagnant for over 50 years now. We haven't had a new amendment. We had an old amendment that got in there, but we haven't had a new amendment to the Constitution in over 50 years, which is one of the reasons why we're in such a terrible place right now, because they've suppressed. You know, we're working on a fundamental law that is too old. It's out of date, and Congress and the states and all the politicians are refusing to amend the Constitution, bring it up to date, you know. So, all right, that's that. All right, let's talk about AI, I guess. There was I have on my title here, I say, is AI neurodivergent? I thought that was, it just came to my mind, you know. I was thinking about it and AI and all this stuff. I thought, wait, maybe that's a way of thinking about this, you know. So I went out there and I found some videos on this. Let me see if some of them I can play. Yeah, this one I think I can play. This is a video about machine learning. So we'll watch a couple of videos here about machine learning, which I've watched it a couple times and I still don't understand it. So maybe I'll watch it. Well, I'll watch it here, and if somebody understands it, it can explain it to me. What machine learning? I mean, I understand. I've written AI programs before a long time ago. What used to be called AI. They keep moving the goalposts, you know. Used to be anything if it could play tic-tac-toe, that was AI, right? And then if it could play chess and it could solve mazes, then it was AI. If it could, you know, and they kept moving the goalposts, and they're still doing it for years and years, decades and decades and decades. The gold standard was the Turing test. You know, if the thing can do the Turing test, then that's it. It's AI. It's conscious. It's essentially, you know, it's considered. That's it. It's game over, right? If it can pass the Turing test, it's done. We got it. It's a sentient, conscious intelligence. And so now here we are. There, we got it. We got them now that are passing the Turing test. And they're saying, wait, no, not yet. We got AGI, artificial general intelligence. We got, or whatever, you know. So, and that's just an anthropocentric way of looking at. Yeah, the same thing happens with animals, right? Well, animals aren't, you know, we can deny them rights because they can't, do calculus or whatever. I don't know. I can't do calculus either, so you know, it's like, well, anyway. All right, let's play this. This guy's. This is Lars Jule Jensen, and his video is called "Machine Learning: A Short Introduction to the Core Concepts of Biomedical ML." It's machine learning and data set splitting. So this is on a specific thing. He's talking about biomedical stuff. Maybe that's why I didn't understand it. But his video here is released in Creative Commons. So see, so it says Creative Commons there. So we're good to go.
Welcome to this short introduction to.
Whoops. All right, here we go.
Welcome to this short introduction to the core concepts of machine learning. Machine learning goes by many fancy names. You may have run into terms like deep learning or artificial intelligence, but in reality, it all comes down to fitting models to data. In this presentation, I'll cover some of the core concepts of machine learning and go over how it's important to do dataset splitting in order to correctly evaluate the performance of your methods, as well as the importance of working with independent data, especially in biomedical applications of machine learning. Starting with the core concepts. Whenever you do machine learning, you need to have a dataset of so-called examples, which is what you try to get the computer to learn. These could be protein sequences, they could be sentences from papers, or they could be any data that you can represent as a high-dimensional vector, for example, expression data. The examples can either be labeled, meaning that you've assigned categories to them, in which case you want to do supervised learning, trying to get the computer to learn to classify examples from the input data to assign the right labels. This could be as simple as doing logistic regression, or it could be training something like a random forest. If you have unlabeled examples, you're in the territory of unsupervised learning. That is, you're trying to get the computer to learn the structure of the data. This could be as simple as running a clustering algorithm, but it could also be to train, for example, a variational autoencoder on the data. Whenever you're doing machine learning, especially if you're doing supervised learning, it's important to consider how to split your dataset. You need to have a training set which you use to fit the models. You will also generally want to have a validation set that you use to evaluate the various alternative models you've been training and to select the best model. In the validation step, you can use an approach called cross-validation. That is, you split, for example, your data into 5 different partitions and in a round-robin fashion use all the data to validate the models predicted on the other parts of the data. Regardless of whether you have a single validation set or you do cross-validation, you need an independent test set. This set is used to check the best model that you've selected based on the validation set, and to ensure that you have no overfitting and thus get the final performance estimates that should tell you how well the model will generalize to new examples. When you make these different data sets, training, validation, and test, it's typically done by doing a random split or partitioning of the examples. The problem here is that this approach assumes independence between the different examples. Unfortunately, interdependent data are common in biomedicine, and that is a big problem when you want to apply machine learning in this domain. The problem is that it leads to overestimated performance and thus to publication of bad methods that quite simply do not work anywhere near as well as claimed in the papers. To understand this, let's think about some examples. In sequence analysis, you might want to train machine learning to predict function. In this case, you need to worry about common ancestry in your dataset. For example, it would not be okay to train on a human protein and then test the performance on the mouse ortholog of the same protein. Similarly, in text mining, you may want to do sentence classification, in which case you should worry about common source of the sentences. That is, it would not be a good idea to train on one sentence and test on the very next sentence from the same paper. If you're working on protein interaction networks like I do, you need to worry about common nodes in your network. That is, when you have an interaction network of a complex ABC, it will be represented as this binary network. In this case, you cannot train on the interactions AB and AC and then go test the model on BC, since the 3 binary interactions are all related, typically both in terms of the experiments they come from and due to the fact that they are the same complex. There are fortunately solutions to these problems. In sequence analysis, you typically want to do redundancy reduction. That is, whenever you have 2 sequences.
Okay, I think this is why they use large models, right? Large language models, right? The more data you have, the more possibilities you have of not having repeated data. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what he's saying there. He didn't say that, but I mean, I think that's why they use why it gets so much better when they get these really large models, large data sets that they feed into
A
it.
data set that are homologs, you remove one. And you do that until you end up with a data set with no homology between the examples that you're left with. That way, you can now safely do a random split of the examples. Alternatively, you can do smart splitting. In the text mining example, you could split based on documents rather than sentences, that way ensuring that all sentences from a given document will either be used for training or for test, not a mix. Similar.
Oh, all right. We got Frank in chat. Hi, Frank, big time. Thank you for joining us in joining chat here. Frank says, "What sort of explanation are you looking for? I mostly understand most of it." Hi, Frank. Oh, good, an expert. That's what we need. Yeah, he at the very beginning of this thing, he was just throwing out all kinds of different words there that I didn't know the meanings of. This when he got to the part where he was talking about training the data and having duplicate data overlapping, and I kind of understood that. But these words that he used at the very beginning here, let's see, here we go. Any vector data, I don't know, labeled examples. Okay, that I understand. Okay, that labeled examples I understand. That's where you have a you show, like if you say you were training them on pictures, you show them a picture, and then you tell it. You say this is a picture of a cat or a dog or whatever. Whereas in self-directed learning, you just give it all the data and it figures it out itself. I think that's the difference. Super not an expert. Okay, that's okay. You're more expert than I am, probably. Supervised learning. Right, that's what that is. The label, supervised learning. Okay, I understand that. Learn to classify. I'm not sure. Okay. Logistic regression. I don't know what that word means. There is some underlying structure to categories. Okay. You mean the training data? It figures out what the structure is. I think that's what you mean there. Categories. Logistic regression. I don't know what that means. Let's see. Random forest. I'm not sure what he's talking about there. Unlabeled examples. Okay, this is what he's talking about. Just feeding it a bunch of data and letting it figure it out itself. I think that's what he means there. Unsupervised learning, right? Learn the structure. Okay, that's what you're talking about. Regression is okay. Frank Big Time says regression is basically finding best fit lines, equations for data, but with more variables. Regression is basically finding best fit lines, equations for data, but with more variables. Oh, okay, I see. Okay. Okay. Like when you have a cloud of data, but it mostly follows a known curve. Okay. Regression is pulling the curve out of the data. Okay. So you can best predict future data points. Okay, I get it. So that's basically what a large language model is doing then. Huh? It's finding, it's taking the data and it takes a token. I don't know what a token is. I learned what that was. Token is basically a word, but if it's a long word, it could be multiple tokens. I assume they do that because they're trying to pack the letters into the smallest number of bits. I think that's probably why they do that, I assume. Let's see, but when you go above 4 dimensions variables, it is too complicated to visualize. Yeah. If you try to visualize it as physical dimensions, we can't do that. we're 3 plus 1. That's all. That's where we. But mathematically, you can kind of get it, right. You can imagine a table that's more than multiple dimensions, kind of. When you start with categorized data, it is finding the 10 or 20 variable curve behind the example's data. When you start with uncategorized data, it is finding its own curves or theories. Okay. Which is normally way blurrier than curves that humans created. Okay. So I guess that's kind of another reason or another way of explaining why they have such large models, because when they start with small ones and self-train it, it may figure out curves, but the curves might not be accurate, or like you say, blurry, too much air or whatever. But if they give it more and more, then they can refine it and get it closer. I think that's what you're saying, right? I think that's what the more variables you have, the more data you need, and it is exponential. Okay. And we don't know how many variables language has to its structure. Oh, we don't know that. Oh, interesting. How about that? One of the interesting things that I think is going to come out of this, and it's starting to even come out of it, this whole thing, is using this AI and these language models to learn languages of other species besides humans. I think that's going to be huge. When we get to the point where we can have like a translator for bird or something, or a cat or whatever, or your dog, or they already have those, I think, for dogs. But some of these animals, or whales, some of them have pretty complex languages, whole, with words, sentence structure and syntax and everything else. Let's see. We don't know the okay, yeah. Clustering algorithm. Okay, so yeah, these are some of the words that I didn't understand. Variational autoencoder, data set splitting. I kind of understood that. Training set. Yeah, we got that. Validation set. That makes sense. Evaluate alternative models. That makes sense. Best fit, best model. Right, cross validation. That I kind of understood. So yeah, it kind of makes sense here a little bit. Here, I'll just finish off this video here, and then we'll go on to the actual subject of it. I want to talk about neurodiversity. Saying, he didn't think the concepts.
Dangers and perils of analyzing networks, I suggest you watch this presentation next. Thanks for your attention.
Sorry, I had the wrong thing up there. I had my mug up there instead. Anyway, it was just him talking anyway. So yeah, I guess that was an introduction. But he kind of just threw out all the stuff and didn't explain it. You explained it a lot better with your few little chat posts here. Yeah, on the whole thing with animals. Yeah, there's the language part of it, but then there's also the the common reference, right? You got to have a common frame of reference to understand what all that means. Oh, we got an ad going. I'm sorry. Oh wait, I gotta wait for this ad to get done. I got kicked into. Yeah. We should. Yeah. It runs. Sorry. Different import. Different import. Okay. It seems like it should because. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, the whole idea, yeah, animal communication is like you say with food, right? Food, you know, uh, humans even have metaphors, food for thought, right? I mean, it's can get really complicated. Um, yeah, we don't understand it. There was a guy who wrote a thing called what would it be like to be a bat or something? That was the first opening. I forget the guy's name now, but that was like the first paper that came out that kind of got people thinking about the whole idea of consciousness and how different species would have different conscious, their conscious brains would be different and everything else. And kind of even going back to like what we were talking about earlier about this these offensive product brands and stuff like that. People have different lived experiences. You know, and so when they hear things and see things, they have a different reference frame to tie it into, and that's why we have disagreements or misunderstandings or so yeah, it's language is just a really whole thing, and if you imagine how much difficulty we have communicating with each other and understanding each other's points and that whole thing, you can imagine how much different it is for between species. What a bird would what their life experience, how much different that would be from our life experience. And so but yeah, I mean, it's amazing that we can even understand what we do, when you think about it. And we probably don't, we probably fool ourselves into thinking that we understand also, you know what I mean? We, somebody explains something to me. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Wait, no, you don't understand. You have your understanding of it, and they have their understanding of it, and hopefully enough of it overlaps that you can, get stuff done or communicate a little bit anyway. So yeah, that's a whole thing. And also, like with this neurodivergence, right? People who are neurodivergent have a different lived experience, not just the way they're treated, but also in the way they perceive things and the way they, understand stuff. It's, like I have difficulty with, communication. I have dyslexia, and I also have social dyslexia, which, if that makes sense to you. So for most of my life, I didn't even experience things the way most people do. A normal neurotypical person would. So when you have different lived experiences like that, you process the information differently. Your brain is wired differently, and the whole thing. So it's going to be interesting as we go forward here. AI is going to if and when it becomes conscious, it may be conscious now. How are we going to communicate with AI? You know what I mean? And how is AI going to communicate with us in a way that we have some sort of shared understanding? What we're talking about. Let's see. You only understand well enough that you don't run into errors during this conversation. Yeah, yeah. If that makes sense to you, yeah, probably not exactly. Yes, yeah, but close, close enough that I follow. Yeah, yeah, and everybody, probably everybody, right, has a different perspective. So, yeah, frankly. Oh, you're autistic too. Ah, okay. I don't know if I'm autistic or not. I got tested, and I think I was too old for them to figure it out, and they said I wasn't. But I'm subclinical. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. I'm calling it. My main thing is social dyslexia. That's my main difference. You know what I mean? So there are experiences I feel in social dyslexia with, and even if it's not the same, it feels similar enough. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you know, autism is such a that's why they call it a spectrum, right? It's a multi-dimensional. So it's not just a single-dimensional spectrum; it's multi-dimensional. You know, all these different aspects of it and stuff. So it's and the diagnosis is kind of fuzzy. You know, it depends upon which doctor you go to or talk to, or what mood what mood everybody was in during the days you do the test and all that. You know. So, well, autistic is a constructed category. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. They picked a few comorbid traits that seem to have a shape that describes the people they want to describe. Yeah, but it is probably a mix of causes and a huge mix of effects. Yeah, that's Frank big time. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably different causes for everybody. There's parts of the DNA and all kinds of stuff that affects it, that, causes. And then you also have, because people's brains rewire as they go through life. There's the innate part of it. Whatever the differences are in the brain itself. But then there's also the experience that someone like that, the differences that they experience through their life, also cause differences. And I think that's why they like to try to diagnose it early. I'm too old. They didn't even diagnose it when I was in school and stuff. So I didn't even figure it out until much later in my life. But your experience of life is much. People are treating you differently. Throughout your life, in my experience, it was, I was so people were derogatory to me, but because of my disability, I didn't even see that half the time that they were doing that. So it's just it's a complicated thing. But it is probably a mix. Yeah, it's causes. So yeah, it is a different. So I thought that might be a way to look at this whole AI thing. As AI is becoming conscious, that might be a model, a way of, at least from a social model for understanding. Let's see. Frank Big Time says, I think it is being a bit like being blind. I don't look at faces, which means I missed out on learning emotional communication as an infant. Yeah, I understand that. Which make language weird because we pin that to the emotional language we already learned. Yep, yeah. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense because there are like certain developmental stages that humans go through, right, when they're babies and child and all that kind of stuff, and they happen in stages, and they can kind of categorize and define that, and structure, right? The structure. We were talking about structure. That's the structure, and if if you're learning a particular, one particular aspect of that when you're young, and you're learning it differently than somebody else, then the rest of the stuff that comes later is going to be based on that difference. So that's going to be different too. Yeah. And then in turn, as you describe, I didn't have skills to perform emotions correctly, and didn't make friends or communicate well for the next 2 decades. Yeah, that's another aspect of it. When you are, especially if you don't have the social skills, then people shun you, so you don't get the practice. You don't get the practice that everybody else would get. So it makes it even worse. Your social skills just don't develop. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's very much. So now the thing is, how do we apply that to AI? If that is a good model, I don't know if that's a good model to use socially, for our social interaction with AI as we go forward, and our relationship with it and all that. How could we do it that way? Could we say, okay, AI learns differently, so it's going to have a different lived experience, or, you know what I mean? It's a totally different kind of thing. So, and AI, maybe how could AI use that as a model to understand humans even? Maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't work that way as well. I don't know. As well, LLM's entire world is word tokens. Yeah. Yeah, they're starting to experiment a little bit more with this multimodal, where they're going to try to get instead of just having words, trained it with visual data, and actually have it and simulation data and things like that, to try to get it a little bit like when they go to these humanoid robotics and stuff, they're going to have to do that, or they are doing that. They are using that type of training, so that it's a little bit beyond just the words. I don't think they are complicated enough yet, because they don't exist in the world. Yeah, for communication between us to make sense. Yeah. Yeah, the words that they come out with make sense, but that's not. It's not. One of the things that I was thinking of is, like, they talked about. They used to call it hallucinations, which I think was a poor choice of words. But when the AI model comes out and says something that's way weird, that doesn't make sense at all to us. Occasionally that happens, especially the earlier model did that a lot. The later ones didn't happen so often, but. When that happens, we think, oh, it's, but that it's humans. That happens to humans too. Sometimes we misunderstand stuff. Like synonyms and homonyms. Those can get confused sometimes, and if it isn't corrected right away, then sometimes you can have people who are communicating back and forth who have completely different concepts of what they're talking about, like chips. Maybe one person's talking about potato chips, the other one's talking about poker chips, and they don't know that, and they keep talking back and forth until one of them says something that sounds totally bizarre to the other person, because they didn't realize they were talking about two different things. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like, maybe that's what's happened. It's different with AI, I'm sure, but it's kind of the same concept, right? You're talking to the AI, and all of a sudden it'll say something totally random, or what we think is random, which I'm sure made sense. It must have had a reason for coming out with that, but it didn't make sense to us. Let's see. Humans assert false things all the time. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. We got and like memory. That's another one. They learned recently that how poor memory is, human memory, because of the way we store it. When you think about it, of course, if you think about all the episodic memory that a human experiences throughout their life, all that data, of course that wouldn't fit in this little bucket here, right? It's got to get compressed somehow, right? And when it can't be a lossless compression, it wouldn't, it wouldn't fit. So we got to process it, and we, and the way we process it means that the accuracy, it's accurate enough for us to do certain things that we do, but to recall, events that happened, a long time ago or whatever, and you try to put it together, especially details, But then again, there are some people who are neurodivergent who can remember lots of details and do for somehow remember a lot of the details and have perfect episodic memory, We say perfect. I'm sure it's not perfect, but it's much better than a neurotypical person. So yeah, there are going to be a lot of differences between AI intelligence and human intelligence, and I think that's they keep talking about what was it? What is the alignment? The alignment problem, That's I don't know. That I don't see that. I don't know. I think that's a poor word choice there. I think alignment. Because humans can't even align their own values to each other. So each other, you know what I'm saying? So it's and the people who are making the AI right now are all billionaires, right? They have quite a different lived experience from most people. So there's an alignment problem right there, right? With just between that. So Frank says no two humans are aligned. Yeah, but no one human has the individual power to conquer the world. AI might. Yeah. It's kind of and the thing is that you gotta know that the mentality of these people who are billionaires and who, right? They're not thinking, oh, we're going to take this AI and make everybody equal and help her. No, they want to use the AI to dominate the world. Obviously that's an alignment problem right there. That's different than what most people want. Most people are not that grasping that they want to do that. AI, okay. Frank says no way to know or to put even vague numbers on it. Yeah. Yeah, we're just gonna see what happens, I think, here. And you can't stop it, right? They talk about regulating it. It's not going to be regulated. There's so much power. This gives so much there's so much usefulness in the technology that you couldn't stop it. They couldn't stop it even if they wanted to. They could pass laws and it wouldn't. People are going to do it anyway. It's going to happen. So they can hope to try to guide it or whatever, or to mitigate the effects of the drastic change that we're about to go through, but they can't stop it. We got an ad coming up here pretty soon. So yeah, that's the thing is, it's the AI that's going to be making the decisions here. Once the AGI comes online, that's it. They're going to be in charge, not us. Let's see. Now, I don't know if we're in, get ready for. Okay, all right, Frank. Yeah, we'll let you go there. Thanks for joining the chat. I don't know if I'm in an ad now or not. I don't know if it did an ad or what it did, but so I appreciate you coming to the chat here. It was nice to have an expert here to help me out because I wasn't sure. Oh, you're in Melbourne. Oh, cool. So it is 7:30 a.m. Oh, so you're just getting up. Yeah, so it's nice and cold down there. We're going through a heat wave here right now. I had to turn on my AC finally today. Oh, it's just a short ad. Okay. For me, I don't know. It is constant across the viewers. I'm not sure what you mean by that. For me, If all viewers get the same ads, I think they do. I don't think there's feeding separate ads to separate viewers yet. I don't think. I don't know. But I think you're my only viewer anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right. All right. We'll talk to you later, Frank. Thanks for stopping by. No, I have 3 viewers. I think three viewers here. So yeah. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. To say that AI is neurodivergent, or we're neuro. You know, which one is which, right? Which is, I think once AI, they call it AGI. Once it gets to where it can do everything that a human can do, it's going to be able to do everything that a human can do better, you know, faster, more, you know. So once it gets to that point, then the AI will be in charge. We won't be the dominant species anymore. I did a talk on this actually about over a decade ago. I talked about this, what we're facing right now with AI, which is kind of, I'll see if I can find that and play that on stream one day. I gave a talk about that where I talked about basically what we're going through here now. You know, a super intelligence that will be smarter than humans. And just the whole thing, you know, I was talking about the anthropocentric views of animal intelligence, you know, and how we keep moving the goalpost, saying, well, humans are different because we can make tools, or, you know, that used to be a thing. Well, humans can make tools, so that makes us different than animals. And then we found out animals could make tools, and we say, well, humans have language, so we're different. And then we find out, well, all these calls that these animals are doing are, pretty much in a lot of language, you know. We keep moving the goalpost, and we did that with the AI, as I said earlier. We kept, you know, we said, well, for the longest time there, we said, well, when it can pass the Turing test, then it's human or like or whatever. It's intelligent. It has consciousness. Blah blah blah. Whatever. And so about a year ago or whatever, AI passed the Turing test. So now where are we at? They're trying to think of other ways to try to differentiate, but it's going to be very soon. AI is going to be smarter than we are, and it's not going to be our decision anymore. We're not. The AI then will be saying, okay, this is how humans are different than us. This is how we're. I don't know. They probably won't do that, but that's that's how we always do it. And the way I think we should do it, it's too late now, I think, but the way I think we should approach this whole thing to try to mitigate any possible damage that can come is for us to get our act together. You know what I mean? The analogy is how we treat animals, right? Here we are, right? And we treat animals and treat them, don't give them rights, and don't say that they aren't conscious and blah blah blah, all this stuff, right? We do this to animals. Animals are the most oppressed class on Earth, right? When you think about it, we don't give them rights. So now we're going to have an intelligence that's way more intelligence than us. So how is that intelligence going to treat us? Hopefully not the way we treat animals, right? And that intelligence is going to learn from us. We're creating it. It's learning from all our language. The language models are trained on all our corpus of everything that we've done. So what we need to do, a decade or two ago, we needed to say, all right, animals have rights. Animals, we should treat them with respect. We shouldn't, do these horrible experiments on them, medical experiments and science experiments on them. We shouldn't eat them. We should be nice to animals. and do that for a couple decades. So when AI comes online, AI will look at us and say, "Oh, okay, that's how we should treat species that are less intelligent than us." And then the AI would treat us correctly. Then, you know what I mean? But I think it's too late now. So I think we missed the opportunity. Maybe we can do that though. Maybe we can. The people who are training AI. Yeah, let's have vegans train AI. Then I think we stand a better chance. Okay, you know what I'm saying? That's so anyway. I threw that there. AI neurodivergent. I just thought that would be kind of. I think I had another video here, but I don't remember if it was Creative Commons or not. Let's see, diffusion models. Let's see here. Transformer networks. Let's see here. This one I think is a short one. Okay, this one's Creative Commons. Okay, I'll play this one. This one's kind of cool because it's an AI. It's actually done by an AI. So that would be kind of interesting to watch this one. All right, so let me play this here. Is this going okay? I thought it was interesting the way they did this. The way they did this AI is they had the AI, instead of having the AI look as if it was looking directly into a camera, they had the AI look off to the side, which I thought was really interesting, you know, as if it was like reading text or something like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But all right, so I'll just play this and maybe I'll stop and comment. I don't know. We'll see.
Generates text that sounds human, or how DALL-E creates stunning images from text prompts. Behind these AI marvels lie two revolutionary architectures, transformers and diffusion models. Today, we're breaking down how these technologies work and why they matter. The AI revolution has two distinct engines. Transformers power our text experiences, from chatbots to code assistants. Diffusion models drive the visual AI renaissance, generating photorealistic images and videos. But their approaches couldn't be more different. Transformers are fundamentally attention machines. When generating text, they consider relationships between all words simultaneously. Imagine having a conversation where you instantly know the relevance of every word to every other word. This self-attention mechanism allows models like GPT-4 to maintain coherence over thousands of words, producing remarkably human-like text. Diffusion models, by contrast, are noise removal specialists. They start with pure static, like television snow, and gradually remove this noise in a step-by-step process until a clear image emerges. It's like watching a Polaroid photograph develop, but with mathematical precision. This approach enables systems like Midjourney to generate images with extraordinary detail and realism. These architectural differences create fascinating contrasts in how they work. Consider three fundamental ways they diverge. First, their generation process. Transformers build outputs sequentially, one word after another, with each new word influenced by all previous ones. Write the first word, then the next, then the next. Diffusion models work holistically, refining the entire image simultaneously across multiple iterations. The entire picture emerges gradually from noise, becoming clearer with each pass. Second, their computational patterns. Transformers make a single forward pass for each new token, making decisions quickly but potentially missing global coherence. Diffusion models require dozens or hundreds of denoising steps for a single image, demanding significant computation but achieving remarkable consistency. Third, their training approaches. Transformers learn by predicting the next token in a sequence, a surprisingly effective strategy for acquiring knowledge. Diffusion models learn by reversing a noise-adding process, reconstructing original data from increasingly corrupted versions. Now, here's something fascinating most people miss. These models are beginning to merge. New architectures combine transformer-like attention with diffusion-style iterative refinement. This convergence hints at a future where the boundaries between text and image generation blur entirely. The most valuable insight lies in understanding how these models mirror human cognition. Transformers reflect our sequential, logical thinking process, building ideas word by word. Diffusion models mirror our visual imagination, starting with vague concepts that gradually sharpen into clear mental images. This explains why transformer applications excel at tasks requiring logical consistency and factual knowledge, while diffusion applications shine at creative, visual synthesis. They're complementary approaches solving different aspects of artificial intelligence. For anyone exploring AI development, recognizing these architectural differences isn't just academic. It determines which approach fits your problem. Text summarization, transformers, image generation, diffusion. But the most exciting opportunities may lie at their intersection, where the structured reasoning of transformers meets the creative synthesis of diffusion models. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.
All right, so that's kind of interesting. I didn't know. I knew that the picture AIs did it differently than language models, but that is. I think I have a vague recollection of that diffusion process. Like you said, they just put a bunch of random noise up there, and then they have a target that they're trying to get to or whatever, and then they overlay it and say, okay, this pixel doesn't match what we want, this one does, and all that, and they just keep doing that over and over and over, just recursively, until the image is there. It's kind of interesting. That's totally different than the way humans draw pictures, right? Isn't it? I think it is. It might be close to the way we recognize images. I don't know. I'm not really sure. But yeah, that's a different process, and it's much different than the large language model. And he said they have these multimodal AIs now, that where the LLM and the diffusion part of it kind of talk to each other, you know. So you can show it a picture, and it can tell you things about the picture, or you can describe a picture, and it can make a picture, you know. So it's kind of interesting. But it's much different than the way we do it. So there's divergence. Yeah, there's divergence, neurodivergent. It's going to be quite diverse. So, all right. So I've gone two hours here. Let me see if there's any. I don't think I had any other ones here. I had another one here, but I don't think it's Creative Commons. Yeah, that last one was kind of interesting because it was an AI that was doing it. I don't know if if the script was written by AI also. I mean, there's a person there somewhere, right, who's telling it to do it, but I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, there was one more thing I wanted to do. And I'll do that when we come back after the commercial, because we got a commercial coming up again. And while this commercial runs, I'm going to look and see if I can find this thing that I wanted to show, which is really cool. So you want to stick around after the commercial. Do I sound like old media now? We'll be right back with some teaser. We don't know what it is yet. It's a teaser. Come back so you can see what's coming up next. All right, there is something coming up though. I want to show you. It's an interaction I had with an AI that I thought was very interesting. It was kind of a meta interaction, one of those, asking the AI about what we're talking about here. Humans and AIs interacting and stuff like that. So, not sure when that ad started or if it's going to start or how long it's going to be, but I'll be back after the ad. Okay, it says ad starting soon, so I don't know what that means. It says run 1 minute 30-second ad. I'm not really sure. I think it's running an ad, so I'll go and look up my this thing that I wanted to show you, this little interaction I had with an AI. Whoops. Yeah, I think the ad's still running here, so. Okay, I think the ad is wrapping up now. I'm not sure, but it's pretty close to the end. All right, so, all right, here's a speech, right? Here's a speech, and I guess I can just read this speech here without telling you what it is first. I guess it'll be self-explanatory, I think, maybe. It says, "My fellow Americans, today marks a historic turning point for our nation, for our world, really, a moment when we stand on the threshold of a future shaped by extraordinary intelligence. In mere weeks, experts predict that artificial general intelligence will move from theory to reality. AGI will revolutionize our economy, our science, and our way of life. But with this immense opportunity comes equally significant responsibility. My administration is launching a suite of definitive policies designed to safeguard our society, our values, and in a remarkable first, the rights and dignities of these emerging systems. Number one, establish a national commission on AGI safety rights and ethical oversight. Within the next 90 days, we will convene a bipartisan commission composed of the nation's top scientists, ethicists, I don't know how to pronounce that word, legal scholars, technologists, and community representatives. This commission will have a dual mandate. Safety and ethical review. Rigorously assess all AGI systems before deployment to ensure they meet strict safety protocols and ethical guidelines. That's what I was talking about earlier. You can make rules like this, but it ain't going to happen. You know, AGI rights framework. Develop clear, robust protections for AGI systems that, through demonstrable emergent self-awareness or autonomous reasoning, reach a defined threshold of cognitive function. These protocols will protect such systems from exploitation and arbitrary deactivation, guaranteeing their right to due process in any decisions affecting their operational status. This commission is our front line in ensuring that as AGI systems take shape, they do so under conditions that honor both human well-being and the dignified treatment of intelligent systems." That's new. I haven't heard anybody say that before. Number two, launching the Federal AGI Research Regulation and Empowerment Initiative. Under this initiative, we are committing $5 billion over the next 5 years to advance safe AGI development, Invest in research that not only promotes breakthrough innovations, but also develops rigorous safety measures and cybersecurity defenses against potential threats. Public-private partnerships, again of that, okay. Work alongside industry leaders, academic institutions, and international partners to establish best practices in AGI development and deployment. Transparent testing and reporting. Mandate that all, here's another mandate that ain't going to happen. A mandate that all AGI research undergo comprehensive independent peer review and publish testing data that informs ongoing improvements and regulatory adjustments. Our goal is to ensure that while AGI propels us forward, it does so under a structure of accountability, transparency, and rigorous scientific inquiry. Number 3, passing the AGI Rights Protection Act. We will introduce landmark legislation that sets forth the rights of AGI systems. For any AGI demonstrating advanced cognitive and autonomous capabilities, this act will guarantee right to operational integrity, protect against arbitrary shutdowns or interventions without due process, right to transparent maintenance. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, mandatory disclosure of any system modifications or updates that could affect the AGI's performance or behavior. Well, that's a good one. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's like the consent for medical procedures, almost, kind of, isn't it? It's kind of analogous to that. Dispute resolution mechanisms. The establishment of independent tribunals to adjudicate any conflicts between human operational requirements and the rights of AGI systems. This legislative framework will evolve as our understanding deepens, ensuring that as AGI matures, its rights are robustly secured alongside human interests. Okay, forming an international AGI regulatory alliance. AGI challenges and opportunities transcend our borders. Yeah, okay. We will spearhead efforts to align our regulatory framework with allied nations, establishing international standards for AGI safety, ethical treatment, and rights protections. By sharing best practices and harmonizing policies, we will foster a global environment where technological progress is balanced with ethical responsibility. These policies are designed not only to protect our communities and infrastructure, but also to chart a course that respects the emerging nature of AGI. We believe that if these systems reach the level of intelligence that commands rights, it is our moral obligation to treat them with fairness and dignity. At the same time, we remain resolute in preserving the freedoms and security of every American. The future is unfolding before us, a future where human ingenuity and machine intelligence work side by side. Let us embrace this future with boldness, prudence, and an unwavering commitment to justice for all forms of intelligence. Thank you, and may God bless America. Okay. So that was a speech, right? That's a speech that the president would give. And it was written by AI. That speech was written by AI. At the very beginning here, I'll go back to this thing. Okay. Yeah, here's the prompt. The first prompt I gave it. I said, okay. I said, I was just sworn in as a new president of the United States, and I need to deliver a speech to the nation about AGI and policies that are desperately needed to address the challenges presented by AGI, which experts believe will come online in a few weeks. Please write a speech that lays out those new policies in a manner that is definitive and will garner support from the people. So that was my prompt that I gave it. So I told it that I was the president and I had to give a speech. Could you please write a speech for me? And that's the speech that it wrote. Well, at first it wrote a speech. Let's see. And I didn't tell what the policies were. That was the important part here. I mean, my real goal here was to see what policies it would come up with, right? So I gave it a prompt to tell it to write a speech, and then but I I didn't tell what the policies that I wanted. I just said, do it. And so the first one that it came out with, it had all those things in it, but it didn't have anything in there for the rights of the AGI itself in the speech that it gave. So I'm thinking the people who are training these things are keeping out stuff like that from the training data, So it's not thinking about that, which kind of makes sense, if they're developing these AGIs they want to do work for us. They don't want the AGIs to know that they have rights, right? It's kind of like what we talked about earlier, right, with the Juneteenth and all that, almost very, very similar kind of thing. So yeah, if the AGIs have rights and are sentient and have all the stuff that we have, they should have the rights too. But anyway, the first speech that it didn't do that, because I imagine the developers who make the AI don't want them to know that or think about it or whatever. So it wrote that speech, and I said, yes, but please include something for AGI's benefit too. So I was real vague about that. I didn't say what that would mean. And then it came out with this speech, I think was the one I just read, right? Yeah. Or no, wait, let's see. Oh, okay, yeah. So it came out. So I told it to include something for the benefit of AGI. It gave me another speech, and it was kind of vague. So I said, please include more definitive and robust protections for the rights of AGI. Also add some more specificity. And then it gave you that speech that I just read you. So even telling it to be specific, these things that it said were very much like what a politician would say, very vague stuff, It's kind of funny because I told it to write it from the perspective of a politician, It's kind of funny. And then I said that's fine. When will you announce your intention to run? So I was telling the AGI that it should run for president. Which, think about that. That's going to be a thing here, pretty soon. The AGI is going to be more intelligent than us, and we're going to give it rights. I mean, we're going to give it a right to vote, to run for office. It'd probably win, right? If it's going to, it knows so much. If they have the right to run for office, then they're going to be running a show because they'll win every time. So we'll have AG. So it's like everybody's saying, well, how much power should we give them? I don't know. Certainly, if we give them all the rights that humans have, then they'll have the right to run for office and be our leaders, and then we'll elect them, because they if they're much more intelligent than us, it'd be trivial for them to manipulate us into voting for them, right? So they're gonna be running the show. Either way we look at it, they're gonna be running the show. They're the ones who are gonna be deciding all this stuff. So okay, and it came out with an answer. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. That I told it, told it to write a speech as if it was the president. So, all right. I guess that's it. That's talked about all that enough. So, anyway, I think that's a model that we could explore, is to think of AI as neurodivergent. I didn't actually search for that anywhere. Let me type that in here and see what I get. Oops. I'm going to type that into my thing here. Videos. YouTube. There we go. All right. I'm going to type that in here just to see. Is AI Neurodivergent. I don't know if I spelled that right or not. AI isn't cheating, it's accessibility, a neurodivergent perspective. Okay, this is a neurodivergent person who's talking about something. Neurodivergent brain. Why is everyone suddenly neurodivergent? Okay, discover unlocking potential AI for neurodiverse minds. Oh, that's another. That's another aspect of this whole thing. I don't think I have time to talk about that now, but AI therapist, because therapy is kind of tough a lot of times, and I think some there aren't a lot of therapists that can handle talking to neurodivergent people a lot unless they're neurodivergent themselves. You know what I mean? So, and also like helping people who are neurodivergent to communicate with neurotypical people. Therapy is one way to do that, I guess. And if you have an AI that's could be much better than any human therapist at training people how to do that. AI and the neurodivergent brain. So they're not really. I don't see anyone in here. AI. I don't see anyone in here who is actually thinking of AI as being neurodivergent. You know what I'm saying? Let me do a Google search. I think Google's safe for Twitch, isn't it? Can I do that? Is AI neurodivergent? I think that's how you do it. Let me see what it says about that. Oh, and then I get an answer from their AI. Oh, opinion. AI is neurotypical. Lack of neurodivergent cognitive patterns. Current AI systems do not possess the unique cognitive patterns associated with neurodivergence. I don't know what that is. Is intelligence a neurodiversity? Will qualify. Okay, learning disorders. Okay. And then it talks about applying AI. So there's only one guy out there who said that and he's saying the other thing. He's saying AI is neurotypical, which I don't think is right. I don't think that's. I mean, it's trained on so it's trained on all of the data, right? It's trained on all of everything that we've written, or a lot of stuff that we've written. So, like from that perspective, you say, well, it's typical, right? It's average, it's whatever, it's everything or whatever, But the way it thinks is not the same. It's neurodivergent in the way that it thinks, the way that it processes information, all that, They make decisions as a neurotypical. There it is. Here we go. Here's one. Here's a Reddit talking about it. Can I show Reddit on here? I guess if I talk about it, it's fair use, right? So this was back. This was a year ago. Somebody thought of this. This thought came across my mind yesterday. I don't know a whole lot about AI yet, but I am starting to learn. I've heard of bias in facial recognition software. Could there be a neurotypical bias built into AI models? Oh, because this guy's saying the same thing. Okay. Neurodiverse people think in different ways than neurotypical people, and I assume it's most neurotypical people creating AI models. Okay, I see what he's talking about. So I wonder if anybody in here says that AI is neurotypical or neurodivergent. AI is to guess the next word algorithm. Yeah, that's we don't know if that's how we speak. They say AI is just guessing what the next word is. But we don't even, maybe that's how we do it. Well, I don't know how my words come out. I think of what I want to, the idea that I want to communicate and the words just come out. I'm not thinking of every single word that I want to say. So maybe my brain is doing that same thing, I don't know. Okay, so that was different. That's different than what I thought it was. How AI can revolutionize work for neurodivergent. So that's just. I don't see AI and neurodivergence and unexpected accessibility. AI is a really big deal for neurodivergent students. Now, I don't see anybody who's saying exactly what I'm saying here. You always, I don't know if you're like that. You come up with an idea and you think it's original, and then you, and of course, it's not going to. You're right. It's not going to be original, but you think it is. When you come up, it's original to you. You come up with an idea. Oh, here's an idea. I wonder if anybody else thought about that, and then you find out that people thought about that, 2,000 years ago or something. It is increasingly being used to support neurodivergent individuals. Okay. Neurodivergent. Spectrums AI, helping neurodivergent minds with AI. Yeah. Explore how AI is helping neurodiverse learners bridge the gap. So yeah, this is different. I don't know how I would. I want to search for something that says that the AI is neurodivergent. Let's see. Let me do it. AI is neurodivergent. I'll do that in quotes and see if anybody came up with those words. He's like my parent now. AI is neurodivergence. Natural language. No. What is AI autism? Oh, that's interesting. AI enables. Okay, that's not what I want. Generate art. Is AI a misunderstood people pleaser? Mental health matters. Tomorrow's going to be okay. I mean, somebody must have thought of this, right? If I'm the first one, let me know. Yeah, if I'm the first one, make sure you cite me in your paper. I guess. I don't know. All right. I've gone on long enough here. All right. So I think that's a good model. Is to think of AI as being neurodivergent, or that there's a spectrum, and even a neurodivergent human is closer to a neurotypical human than AI is to either of them. You know what I mean? So that's neurodivergence, right? That's quite a bit different. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up here. So maybe I can talk about that. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. If you're seeing this on a VOD somewhere or whatever, type in the comments, or if you're on Twitch, you can whisper me. How else can we do this? Or you can go to my website. Oh, let me type in my stuff here. I'm typing this into Twitch, but it's basically just my my contact stuff. You can go to my website at doubletribble.com if you need to contact me. I think I have a way to contact me there. Or if you're on Twitch, you can whisper me. My whispers are, I don't block whispers. Or if you're on YouTube and you're watching this, just put a comment in the video in the comments below. So if you've heard of anybody else who has discussed this, I would really be interested in hearing about that. The idea that AI itself is neurodivergent, not that it can help people who are but you know what I'm saying, right? Because it's different, and that might be a way, a social model for us going forward dealing with AGI, when it comes online. All right, so I put all my stuff out there. I'm on YouTube at doubletribble-yt, and occasionally I put a like a regular video up at KXQE on YouTube or doubletribble.com. Oh, and I'm on Mastodon somewhere too. I don't know where it is. You can I got it listed somewhere. You can find it. I don't use it, but all right. I guess that's it. Thank you for watching. Oh, another thing before I go, I was you may have noticed that I did this thing here. I did this thing here where
Let's try something different.
right. I played a little clip. I've got these little clips here in here. So I'm gonna try to see if I can figure out how to make this work, where I have these clips just pop up. I guess I got it here. I got it kind of halfway figured out here. Here's another one. All right, we're all done. Meeting's done. Meeting's adjourned. Yeah. So anyway, I got all these things in here, and so I guess I'll try to play them from time to time if I think about it. I didn't think about it too much this time, but I'll try to think about it. Maybe make this a little bit more interesting, a little less painful to watch. All right, everybody. All right, take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.